Hello friends. Welcome to Homeopathy Medicines. Today in this homeopathic Materia Medica, I will discuss about homeopathic medicine Nux vomica. Before starting this video, please subscribe to this channel. We need support from you to make this channel more beautiful and more informative. Now going to discuss about Nux vomica, its uses and symptoms. Is the greatest of polycrests, because the bulk of its symptoms correspond in similarity with those of the commonest and most frequent of diseases. It is frequently the first remedy, indicated after much dosing, establishing a sort of equilibrium of forces and counteracting chronic effects. Nux is preeminently the remedy for many of the conditions incident to modern life. The typical Nux patient is rather thin, spare, quick, active, nervous, and irritable. He does a good deal of mental work, has mental strains and leads a sedentary life, found in prolonged office work, overstudy, and close application to business, with its cares and anxieties. This indoor life and mental strain seeks stimulants, coffee, wine, possibly in excess, or, again, he hopes to quiet his excitement by indulging in the sedative effects of tobacco, if not really a victim to the seductive drugs, like opium, etc. These things are associated with other indulgences. At table, he takes preferably rich and stimulating food. Wine and women play their part to make him forget the close application of the day. Late hours are a consequence. A thick head, dyspepsia, and irritable temper are the next day's inheritance. Now he takes some cathartic, liver pills, or mineral water, and soon gets into the habit of taking these things, which still further complicate matters. Since these frailties are more yielded to by men than women, Nux is preeminently a male remedy. These conditions produce an irritable, nervous system, hypersensitive and overimpressionable, which Nux will do much to soothe and calm. Especially adapted to digestive disturbances, portal congestion, and hypochondriacal states depending thereon. Convulsions, with consciousness, worse, touch, moving. Zealous fiery temperament. Nux patients are easily chilled, avoid open air, etc. Nux always seems to be out of tune, inharmonious spasmodic action. Mind, very irritable, sensitive to all impressions. Ugly, malicious. Cannot bear noises, odors, light, etc. Does not want to be touched. Time passes too slowly. Even the least ailment affects her greatly. Disposed to reproach others. Sullen, fault-finding. Headache in occiput or over eyes, with vertigo, brain feels turning in a circle. Oversensitiveness. Vertigo, with momentary loss of consciousness. Intoxicated feeling, worse, morning, mental exertion, tobacco, alcohol, coffee, open air. Pressing pain on vertex, as if a nail driven in. Vertigo in morning and after dinner. Scalp sensitive. Frontal headache, with desire to press the head against something. Congestive headache, associated with hemorrhoids. Headache in the sunshine, glen, natcarb. Feels distended and sore within, after a debauch. Eyes, photophobia, much worse in morning. Smarting dry sensation in inorcanthi. Infraorbital neuralgia, with watering of eyes. Optic nerve atrophy, from habitual use of intoxicants. Paresis of ocular muscles, worse, tobacco and stimulants. Orbital twitching radiating towards the occiput, optic neuritis. Ears, itching in ear through eustachian tube. Auditory canal dry and sensitive. Otalgia, worse in bed. Hyperesthesia of auditory nerves, loud sounds are painful, and anger him. Nose, stuffed up, at night especially. Stuffy colds, snuffles, after exposure to dry, cold atmosphere, worse, in warm room. Odors tend to produce fainting. Coryza, fluent in daytime, stuffed up at night and outdoors, or alternates between nostrils. Bleeding in morning, acrid discharge, but with stuffed up feeling. Mouth, jaws, contracted. Small aphthous ulcers, with bloody saliva. First half of tongue clean, posterior covered with deep fur, white, Yellow, cracked edges. Teeth ache, worse, cold things. Gums swollen, white, and bleeding. Throat, rough, scraped feeling. Tickling after waking in morning. Sensation of roughness, tightness, and tension. Pharynx constricted. Uvula swollen. Stitches into air. Stomach, sour taste, and nausea in the morning, after eating. Weight and pain in stomach, worse, eating, sometime after. Flatulence and pyrosis. Sour, bitter eructations. Nausea and vomiting, with much retching. Ravenous hunger, especially about a day before an attack of dyspepsia. Region of stomach very sensitive to pressure, Rs. Epigastrium bloated, with pressure S of a stone, several hours after eating. Desire for stimulants. Loves fats and tolerates them well, poles opposite. Dyspepsia from drinking strong coffee. Difficult belching of gas. Wants to vomit, but cannot. Abdomen, bruised soreness of abdominal walls, apis, self. Flatulent distension, with spasmodic colic. Colic from uncovering. Liver engorged, with stitches and soreness. Colic, with upward pressure, causing short breath, and desire for stool. Weakness of abdominal ring region. Strangulated hernia, op. Forcing in lower abdomen towards genitals. Umbilical hernia of infants. Stool, constipation, with frequent ineffectual urging, incomplete and unsatisfactory, feeling as if part remained unexpelled. Constriction of rectum. Irregular, peristaltic action, hence frequent ineffectual desire, or passing but small quantities at each attempt. Absence of all desire for defecation is a contraindication. Alternate constipation and diarrhea after abuse of purgatives. Urging to stool felt throughout abdomen. Itching, blind hemorrhoids, with ineffectual urging to stool, very painful, after drastic drugs. Diarrhea after a debauch, worse, morning. Frequent small evacuations. Scanty stool, with much urging. Dysentery, stools relieve pains for a time. Constant uneasiness in rectum. Diarrhea, with jaundice, dig. Urine, irritable bladder, from spasmodic sphincter. Frequent calls, little and often. Hematuria, ibec, tereb. Ineffectual urging, spasmodic and strangery. Renal colic extending to genitals, with dribbling urine. While urinating, itching in urethra and pain in neck of bladder. Male, easily excited desire. Emissions from high living. Bad effects of sexual excesses. Constrictive pain in testicles. Orchitis, hama, poles. Spermaturia, with dreams, backache, burning in spine, weakness and irritability. Female, menses too early, lasts too long, always irregular, blood black, cycle, latch, pulls, with faint spells. Prolapsus uteri. Dysmenorrhea, with pain in sacrum, and constant urging to stool. Inefficient labor pains, extend to rectum, with desire for stool and frequent urination, lil. Desire too strong. Metorrhagia, with sensation as if bowels wanted to move. Respiratory, catarrhal hoarseness, with scraping in throat. Spasmodic constriction. Asthma, with fullness in stomach, morning or after eating. Cough, with sensation as if something were torn loose in chest. Shallow respiration. Oppressed breathing. Tight, dry hacking cough, at times with bloody expectoration. Cough brings on bursting headache and bruised pain in epigastric region. Backache in lumbar region. Burning in spine, worse, 3 to 4 a.m. Cervicobrachial neuralgia, worse, touch. Must sit up in order to turn in bed. Bruised pain below scapulae. Sitting is painful. Extremities, arms and hands go to sleep. Paresis of arms, with shocks. Legs numb, feel paralyzed, cramps in calves and soles. Partial paralysis, from overexertion or getting soaked, rus. Cracking in knee joints during motion. Drags his feet when walking. Sensation of sudden loss of power of arms and legs in the morning. Sleep, Cannot sleep after 3 a.m. until towards morning, awakes feeling wretchedly. Drowsy after meals, and in early evening. Dreams full of bustle and hurry. Better after a short sleep, unless aroused. Skin, body burning hot, especially face, yet cannot move or uncover without feeling chilly. Urticaria, with gastric derangement. Acne, skin red and blotchy. Fever, cold stage predominates. Paroxysms anticipate in morning. Excessive rigor, with blueness of fingernails. Aching in limbs and back, and gastric symptoms. Chilly, must be covered in every stage of fever. Perspiration sour, only one side of body. Chilliness on being uncovered, yet he does not allow being covered. Dry heat of the body. Modalities, worse, morning, mental exertion, after eating, touch, spices, stimulants, narcotics, dry weather, cold. Better, from a nap, if allowed to finish it, in evening, while at rest, in damp, wet weather, cost, strong pressure. Everywhere in this remedy we observe the striking oversensitiveness of the patient. It is brought out in all the symptoms. Irritable, oversensitive to noise, to light, to the least current of air, to his surroundings, extremely touchy in regard to his food, many kinds of food disturb, strong foods disturb, he is aggravated by meat, craves stimulants, pungent, bitter, succulent things, something to brace him up. Oversensitive to medicines. One reason why there are so many Nux patients is because people have been overdrugged by the old school. When a patient comes from the old school and bad prescribing, having had stimulants and tonics to brace him up, wine, and stimulants of all sorts, it is sometimes impossible to get reliable symptoms, to get the patient settled down, until we give Nux as an antidote. It is useful in those overdrugged by tea, coffee, wine. Old coffee drinkers become sensitive, oversensitive to noise, their symptoms are flitting, they do not give their symptoms well. Such patients will do well for a few days on Nux, some of their symptoms will drop out and they will settle down. The mental state is varied, but they all show oversensitiveness, irritable, touchy, sensitive conditions. They are never contented, never satisfied, disturbed by their surroundings, and they become irritable, so that they want to tear things, to scold. Impulses are strongly marked at times. The woman has impulses to destroy her husband or to throw her child into the fire. The impulse is intermingled with violent temper, cannot be contradicted or opposed. If a chair is in the way he kicks it over, if, while undressing, a part of his clothing should catch on a button he would pull it off because he is so mad at it. Likeness. AC. An uncontrollable state of irritability, it is a weakness and is accompanied by physical weakness, a lack of balance. For example, a businessman has been at his desk until he is tired out, he receives many letters, he has a great many irons in the fire, he is troubled with 1,000 little things, his mind is constantly hurried from one thing to another until he is tortured. It is not so much the heavy affairs but the little things. He is compelled to stimulate his memory to attend to all the details, he goes home and thinks about it, he lies awake at night, his mind is confused with the whirl of business and the affairs of the day crowd upon him, finally brain fag comes on. When the details come to him he gets angry and wants to get away, tears things up, scolds, goes home and takes it out of his family and children. Sleeps by fits and starts, wakens at 3 a.m., and his business affairs crowd on him so that he cannot sleep again until late in the morning when he falls into a fatiguing sleep and wakens up tired and exhausted. He wants to sleep late in the morning. Melancholy, sadness, but all the time he feels as if he could fly to pieces, jerks things about, tears things up, wants to force things his own way. Driven by impulses to commit acts that verge upon insanity, the destruction of others. Nitr. Sit. Has a strong impulse to destroy himself. Arg. Nitr, also, particularly by jumping from a height, but he avoids placing himself in such a position. He is oversensitive to the open air, to a draft of air, always chilly, always taking cold, and it settles in the nose and extends to the chest. Skin oversensitive to touch, to draft. Full of pains and aches. He sweats easily on the slightest provocation. Brain fatigue, neuralgias, on the verge of insanity, and this goes on to convulsions. Convulsions of single muscles and those of the whole body, muscular twitchings, weakness, trembling, and paralysis. This paralytic weakness and disordered state of the activity of the muscles and nerves are prominent. Another state running through Nux is that actions are turned in opposite directions. When the stomach is sick, it will empty its contents with no great effort ordinarily, but in Nux there is retching and straining as if the action were going the wrong way, as if it would force the abdomen open, a reversed action, retches, gags, and strains, and after a prolonged effort he finally empties the stomach. The same condition is found in the bladder. He must strain to urinate. There is tenesmus, urging. The bladder is full and the urine dribbles away, yet when he strains it ceases to dribble. In regard to the bowels, though the patient strains much, he passes but a scanty stool. In the diarrhea at times when he sits on the commode in a perfectly passive way, there will be a little squirt of stool, and then comes on tenesmus so that he cannot stop straining, and when he does strain there comes on the sensation of forcing back, the stool seems to go back, a kind of antiperistalsis. In constipation the more he strains the harder it is to pass a stool. In diarrhea and dysentery there is straining without relief, but as soon as he passes a little stool there is relief. In dysentery, murk. Has the constant urging, murk. Core. Tenesmus with great desire to urinate. The reversed action of the various functions shows the spasmodic nature of this remedy. Pains shoot from the rectum up, burning. Neuralgias about the eyes, face, and head, neuralgic headaches, the pains stick, and tear, they cause weeping, fainting, they burn and sting. Pains in the head and face and in the extremities, that sting and tear, but especially draw. Sensation of tension in the muscles. A drawing in the back like a pulling or tension in the muscles. The pain feels as if drawing, a spasm of the muscles, a drawing pain in the back, drawing pain in the back of the neck, forcing the patient to let the head go back, drawing pain down the spine, lumbago. Backache worse as soon as she lies down, pregnancy, as if it would break, foes. As if broken, colici, must get up and walk. Neuritis with great soreness of skin. Pains in the regions of the kidneys and liver. Pains draw so that he cannot turn over in bed, and the only way he can get over is to lift himself up by his hands and then turn over and lie down. Drawing pains in the sacrum and hips, drawing pains in the sacrum in connection with dysentery. Rending pains in the bowels, and every pain causes desire for stool. Such is the characteristic of all the abdominal pains. Drawing pains in the extremities, causing spasms in the calves, feet, and toes. Cramps in the abdomen cause desire for stool, after pains in the form of cramps urge to stool, menstrual colic, with urging to stool, pains in the stomach, after eating, urge to stool. After much straining no stool passes, but after going several times a small stool passes with relief. It is scanty and with reversed peristaltic action. Oversensitive to stimulants. It is a routine remedy in men trying to sober up, even in delirium tremens. Old debauchees, broken down with stimulants, sexual excesses and the worry and fret of business, they work half an hour and then go out and get a drink, and this goes on until finally they must give up, go home and go to bed. He is on the verge of insanity, irritable, fatigued, sweats much, is aggravated from the air, sensitive to noise and light, broken down. He must have nux, rest and no stimulants. In those drinking too much tea, coffee and stimulants, they stay awake day and night until the end must come. There is tension in all the nerves, he feels as if he must fly, as if he could no longer hold together, his muscles and hands tremble, there is jerking of the limbs on going to sleep and in sleep. Full of anxiety, despair, and hypochondriasis, oversensitive to impressions. All the senses are in this condition, cannot bear reading or conversation, irritable, and wishes to be alone. Everybody displeases or does something to annoy him. Everybody that attempts to soothe only angers him. He dreads the business affairs of the day. Finally this state comes on, he quarrels, reproaches, scolds, insults from jealousy, mingled with unchaste expressions, soon afterwards howls and weeps aloud. Patient is broken down sexually because he is unusually endowed with sexual desires and he indulges until broken down, sexually exhausted, impotent. Mental erotism, but relaxation on intromission. Driven to suicide. Nux is an old dyspeptic, lean, hungry, withered, bent forward, premature age, always selecting his food and digesting almost none, aversion to meat, it makes him sick, craves pungent, bitter things, tonics. Weak stomach, after meals pain in the stomach, nausea, retching, stomach sinks in, withers and loses flesh. Tendency to take cold, gets coryza. Colds settle in the nose, throat, chest and ears. Takes cold from the least provocation, perspires easily and the least current of air causes headache with coryza. If he is in a heated room and is disturbed in his equilibrium he gets a coryza. Coryza is also worse in a warm room. Much stuffing up of the nose in the house at night, nose feels completely filled up, particularly out of doors, but fluent indoors, thin, watery discharge during the day. Sensitive to the least draught, sneezing caused by itching in the nose. This itching goes to the throat and trachea. Cough, burning in the air passages, all the mucous membranes in a state of irritation, nasal tone to voice, loss of voice, sore throat, tickling cough. Dry, teasing cough with great soreness of the chest, like bry, the head feels as if it would split. Coryza goes to the chest. Crip with fever and bone pains, must pile on clothing, the only relief is by keeping unusually hot, yet a warm room aggravates the coryza before the fever comes on, but after the fever comes on he must have heat, aggravated even from the movement of air under the bedclothes, lifting the covers aggravates the pains, cough, etc., sharp fever and sweat, or a hot sweat like opium. But opium in a hot sweat wants the covers off, while nux cannot raise the covers, chills and fever, heat and sweat intermingled. In chills the fingers and hands are cold, and purple, cold from head to foot, the chill begins in the extremities or back, and extends over the whole body and the patient must be covered up. Shortly there is a reaction and heat and sweat come on, but he must be covered through all the stages. Thirst is not a marked feature. Sometimes it is found in the heat. Tendency to jaundice in all the febrile states. Sclerotics become yellow. Skin becomes very yellow. Old intermittents with yellow skin. Runs close to bry. In abdominal complaints with jaundice. Nux suffers from a disordered stomach. A stasis of the portal system is present, portal congestion, stasis in the hemorrhoidal veins with hemorrhoids, constipation, dysentery, paralysis of the rectum. Stomach symptoms like pulls, worse in the morning, foul mouth in the morning also like pulls. Bursting sensation in the head as if a stone crushed the vertex after disordered stomach. Full of paralytic conditions. The bowels are in a state of excitement but this passes away and the time comes when the feces remain in the rectum with no warning. This extends to the bladder, so that it becomes full of urine which cannot be voided, dribbling of urine in old men with large prostate, or in gonorrhea. Paralysis of the extremities, of the face, one arm, one hand, single muscles, facial paralysis not uncommonly cured by nux. The sticking pains in paralysis are important. At times false plethora, with flushed face, excitement of face, blushing, great weakness and exhaustion, with irritability and the mental condition. When under no exertion with nothing to think of, patient appears to be well, but the thought of doing something exhausts him in a moment. Headache from sweating, in wine drinkers, in those staying out at night, from night watching. The greatest relief in headaches is from perfect quiet. Headaches as if a stone pressed upon the vertex. Most symptoms better from heat, but the head is worse from heat. Acne from eating cheese. It has most violent convulsions with opisthotonos, convulsions of all the muscles of the body, with purple face and loss of breath from the movements, conscious or semi-conscious during the whole spasm, aware of the sufferings and contortions which are horrible, worse from the slightest draught of air, tickling of the feet, the merest touch of the throat causes gagging. It is given as a routine remedy for loss of appetite. It will increase the appetite but do dangerous work to the patient. Aversion to meat, usual food and drink, and customary tobacco and coffee, to water, ale, food just eaten. Pains particularly of the abdomen, pains cutting, causing the patient to bend double, with nausea from overeating, bearing down, spasmodic pains in the abdomen, often extend into the limbs, but more often towards the rectum, colicky pains which urge to stool and urination, renal colic, especially when each pain shoots to the rectum and urges to stool. Renal colic is caused by a stone in the ureter, which by its irritation causes a spasmodic clutching of the circular fibers of that canal. The proper medicine relaxes these fibers and the pressure from behind forces these calculi out at once. The same is true of gallstone colic. The remedy that ameliorates, or some of its cognates, will overcome the tendency to form stones. Healthy bile dissolves gallstones in the sac, healthy urine does the same to a stone in the pelvis of the kidney. Nux runs close to Bry. In abdominal complaints with marked yellowness of the skin. Bry is worse from motion and not better from heat. Nux is both and is more suited to portal congestion, the neuralgias, etc., is worse from slightest pressure. Coloc is better from the slightest pressure. Mag. pH is better from pressure and heat. Bry indicated more in peritonitis, lies with limbs drawn up. Hemorrhoids, portal congestion, cutting pains to rectum causing urging to stool. Cupor has cutting pains from front to back as if transfixed. Abdomen sunken in nux, while in calc and sepia it is engorged. Inula resembles nux, has colic with urging to stool and to urinate. Milk sours on the stomach. Heat in the head when eating. Bad effects from coffee, alcoholic drinks, debauchery. Sensation of phlegm in the throat, worse from eating. Aloe has diarrhea from leaving off beer. Nux has diarrhea from leaving off alcoholic drinks. Sensation of a lump in the stomach, Bry. In chronic cases sepia is more apartment to be indicated and follows nux well, but quarrels with Bry, associate this with the pressure in the vertex and you have the typical nux condition. Sensation of stone comes an hour after eating, showing that there has been an attempt at digestion, but in a bisnig. It comes at once. Creos. Pains do not begin until 3 hours after eating and then the food is vomited. It is closely related to sulfur and often antidotes the overaction of sulfur. It seldom goes to the bottom and antidotes the constitutional action of sulfur, but it will remove its exaggerated action, its superficial action. Menses too soon, too long, how copious, more strikingly prolonged, flows and dribbles just enough to stain the linen, starting up now and again with clots. One menstrual flow is prolonged into another. This will be accompanied with a mental state, excitable, oversensitive to medicines. Menses too early and too profuse, occur too soon and last too long, flow dark. At times attended with violent pains, cramps in the uterus, extending over the body, ameliorated from heat and pressure, aggravated by the slightest current of air or cold, pains and spasms ameliorated by the hot water bottle, clothing and heat. Labor pains with soreness like emerging, etc. bearing down as if contents would protrude, with teasing to urinate and urging to stool. The flow may be scant and fitful. Itching of the vulva is prominent. Full of hysterical manifestations. Europeans develop symptoms more often calling for nux in their hysterical manifestations, while Americans oftener need nausea. Has troublesome asthma. Useful in persons who say they have asthma from every disordered stomach. They may go free for a year after Nux is given, and then they eat something that disagrees, and they sit up all night with asthma. They need Nux. Asthma associated with cough, rattling in the chest fills up with mucus, cough with gagging, retching, appears as if he had taken a fresh cold. Coryza every time he disorders his stomach. I have a patient who has a coryza every time she eats sausage. There is no cure for her because she places her coffee, wine, and social matters above her health. She can eat steak, some cannot eat any meat. After a disturbed stomach coryza which goes to the chest and then asthma comes on. Palpitation and excitement of the heart and circulation. Much throbbing. Worse in the morning, mentally and physically. The coryza and some head symptoms are worse from the warmth of the bed like murk. Yet worse uncovering, worse from eating and from motion, head is worse from heat. Pressure and sense of weakness in the left inguinal ring, hence cures hernia in babies, like, right side. Am. Relieves soreness, etc. Conium also, it competes with Nux in sense of goneness in the groin. Chills are not better from any amount of covers, IGN. Chills are better uncovering. In intermittents, the chill and heat intermingle, the heat is short and dry, and followed by hot sweat and intense heat, worse in the morning, but the chill comes at any time. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more videos like Nux vomica, please subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon. Comment us your feedback. Like and share this video with your friends and family. For paid and free consultancy online, visit homeopathymedicines.com and mashclinic.com. Thank you. Have a nice day. Stay healthy, stay happy.